Backpacking stoves have replaced cooking over a wood fire. The use of backpacking stoves reduces the fire hazard and is better at leaving no trace. No unsightly black rock fire rings or an aggressive collection of firewood in popular camps. Now there are some safety notices. All combustible stoves consume oxygen and produce carbon monoxide and should not be used inside tents or enclosed spaces. Liquid gas stoves often have a yellow fireball which can be a fire hazard. Clearance of at least 4 feet is required above all stoves. Backpacking stoves should never be used inside a tent as flames or heat may ignite the tent fabric. Backpacking stoves by nature are a bit tippy and do not support large pots well. Pick a flat, level, safe area and be prepared for pot tipping. For an example, do not sit next to the lit stove while it's boiling water. Never add a heat shield or a windshield to a canister stove, as this may explode the canister. If you spill liquid fuel, move to a new location. If you spill fuel on yourself, have someone else light the stove. There are 2 popular kinds of backpacking stoves. One type uses liquid camp fuel, unleaded gas without the automotive additives, and the other type uses non-refillable butane or butane/propane canisters. Now there are advantages and disadvantages to both of these stoves. The liquid camp fuel stove has cheaper fuel and it's available in more places. It performs well in the cold. It can use heat shields to focus heat, and it can redistribute fuel between stoves. However, it is harder to assemble. It can come in contact with fuel. It is hard to light, and there may be fireballs. Fuel can become stale, and it lights with a match or a lighter. For the canister stoves, it is very easy to assemble and light. It has very good flame control. It burns clean without soot. It's compact and lightweight, and there's an optional push-button lighting. However, it is hard to find fuel, and you can't ship it. Empty fuel canisters are toxic waste. The fuel must be warmer than 45 degrees. You slowly collect over time lots of partially filled canisters. It is hard to tell how much fuel is left in these canisters, and they are very unstable. Camp fuel stoves come in 2 major styles. One is with an integrated fuel tank like this one, and the other one is with a separate tank. These stoves have a priming phase. Typically, the fuel line passes through the burner, which converts the liquid fuel into a gaseous vapor from a liquid-like substance. Initially, the liquid gas will create a yellow fireball before the normal blue flames appear. The Coleman Feather is an example of an integrated fuel tank. The combined weight is 23 ounces. The proven design has been around for about 30 years. There's no assembly and little maintenance. It weighs 23 ounces without fuel. It can boil 1 liter of water in 3.7 minutes, and 6.9 liters of water are boiled for every 100 grams of fuel. It costs approximately $80 in stores. There are many models of the separate fuel cell camp fuel stoves. We use the MSR Whisperlite because it is durable and inexpensive. It does not suffer from a lack of flame control. More expensive models have better flame control. For international travel, some models can use unleaded gasoline, kerosene, or even jet fuel. This stove weighs 11 ounces, 14.5 ounces with accessories, without fuel. It can boil 1 liter of water in 3.9 minutes, and it boils 7.3 bottles of water, 7.3 liters of water for 100 grams of fuel. It costs $80 with a $15 fuel tank. Canisters are usually filled with butane or a butane/propane mixture. Most manufacturers suggest you use only their fuel, but often others will work. At least one brand offers a heating pad to place under their tank for use in low temperature situations. Otherwise, when it is less than 45 degrees, you may have to keep the tanks in your sleeping bag or jacket pocket to keep them usable. There are many models and brands to choose from. The stoves may be more or less expensive, but over time the fuel costs will add up, especially for a group. Things to consider are the size of the burner, methods to prevent tipping, the BTU output, typically between 6,000 and 12,000 BTUs, and if you want to use a piezo lighter. Careful, however, they can break. Have a backup plan like matches or a lighter. Troop 566 picked the MSR Whisperlite shaker jet stove over the other possible ones because it has a wide base and wide pot support, making it more stable than most canister-based stoves. We often have trips where the temperature is below 45 degrees, and the camp fuel style stoves perform well in cold weather without any extra hassle like sleeping with your fuel to keep it warm. With a separated fuel tank, you can use a windshield to more quickly heat your water or meal. Butane stoves are great, but they use non-refillable canisters like this one, which makes them wasteful. We now have dozens of partial canisters that no one wants to take on the next trip as extra weight, or having to stop mid-meal to change canisters. We can easily redistribute the liquid camp fuel between multiple stoves in a group and in a group setting. The MSR Whisperlite uses camp fuel. We use the same Coleman camp fuel as used with our car camping Coleman 3-burner stoves. We typically bring one 22-ounce and one 11-ounce fuel canister, this one as a reserve, for every stove for a weekend trip. We use the larger one primarily. This gives us over 3 hours of use, as 11 ounces cover approximately an hour of cooking. And together, this easily covers the needs of a typical weekend camping trip. The stove is easy to use and to maintain, even in the field. MSR sells 2 levels of field servicing kits. Having replaceable parts and kits gives one confidence in using the stove on extended backpacking trips. The advantages of this one over others is that it uses refillable fuel bottles, it is inexpensive, it's lightweight and small in size, stoves and parts are easily available, it is easy and powerful at low temperatures and above freezing, has a powerful 11,000 BTU burner, the stale fuel or dirt in the system can be easily cleaned outdoors, and it is long-lasting. However, it is risky because you have to handle camp fuel directly. The fuel can become stale and it can clog the jets. The O-rings on the stove fail at negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's only one setting of the stove. When you purchase the MSR Whisperlite backpacking stove, you'll get in this sack a compact version of the stove, which should look like this. You should also get a pump assembly, which would look like this, and it will go into the different pump tanks. You should also get bottom and side heat shield foil, so 2 different pieces of aluminum foil. And then you should also get a small plastic bag that contains some pump oil, a wrench used for the stove, and an O-ring, a red O-ring. You should finally also get an instruction manual. If this video doesn't help enough, hopefully this instruction manual will help. When you get the MSR Whisperlite stove, you should also think of getting some of the accessories that come with it, especially the fuel tanks. Fuel tanks come in 11-ounce, 22-ounce, and 33-ounce canisters. The 33-ounce canister isn't shown here. You should also think of getting either the annual mains kit, the expedition service kit, or both for the stove. The smaller annual maintenance kit comes with a new pump tank seal, another canister of pump oil, several O-rings for different parts of the stove, a safety pin, and another MSR wrench to use on the stove. The Expedition Service Kit, however, has all of those and more. It has a detailed set of directions. It has a international wick. It again has that same pump tank seal. It has a filter for the pump of the stove. It again has a safety pin right here, and it also has a jet cleaning tool. It has, again, that canister of pump oil and an MSR wrench. It also has all those several O-rings, but it also has several other things. There are 3 jets, a pump cup, the pump fuel line collar, the old and the new pump check valves. And together this holds most of the replacement parts for the stove. The storage pouch is large enough to store and transport the stove to the campsite. This excludes the fuel canisters, which are carried separately. First, you must select a safe spot for stove operation. A wooden picnic table is suitable as long as no camp fuel is spilled at any point and stove operation is always supervised. You must ensure you use the bottom foil to reflect heat up to prevent damage to the table. If you spill any fuel, you must move to a new location. When working with the fuel, you must be away from any ignition source, including other stoves in operation. There should be at least 4 feet of clearance above and around the stove. First, you must prepare the fuel bottle. Carefully remove the fuel bottle cap. Note that a stick may be used as a lever to help open overly tight lids. Place this cap in the stove storage bag to keep it clean and safe from any dirt. Take out the pump and inspect it to make sure the fuel fill tube is attached to the pump. An old style also has a fuel vent tube. Make sure that the fuel level is not above the marked fuel fill level at the maximum fill line. If it is, transfer the excess fuel to another bottle. This space is required both for the insertion of the pump into the bottle as well as to allow sufficient air to compress to move fuel from the bottle to the stove. Old style pumps with 2 tubes need to be gently bent to fit in the tank, with a long one first. The fill tube should automatically be positioned in the very bottom of the tank. The stove fuel line can only be inserted into the fuel pump in one orientation, forcing the pump's fill tube to be at the very bottom of the fuel bottle. As you thread the pump onto the fuel bottle, make sure it starts perpendicular to the bottle so the threads on it engage easily. Be careful not to cross-thread the connection. The threads should engage easily and be turned easily. If not, it is being cross-threaded and can ruin the pump or bottle permanently. Tighten firmly but gently. Be careful not to over-tighten, as this will ruin the seal and cause leaks until replaced. Make sure the control valve is fully closed here, clockwise or righty-tighty. Be gentle on the pump handle. If you break it, you will not have a stove to heat your food. Always look at the pump shaft as you pump the stove, so you can make sure you are pumping the shaft without bending it. Do not bang the pump shaft into the stops at either end of its travel. However, you must fully push the pump handle in to make a successful pump. The pump often makes a little noise, like that, while pumping, but this is okay. You should pump 20 to 30 strokes. You can stop if it becomes too hard after 15 strokes or more. If it is too hard before this, perhaps there was not enough airspace left in the fuel bottle. Fuel above the maximum fill line before the pump was installed.